Mañana. Hecho the check.
Hey, bud, you want to hit us with another of those trivia questions?
I'm already sick of this place. I want out of here. Are you sick of this?
Nobody's allowed to take
So hard.
Actually, Mr. Fan Fact, Bahia was our first getaway.
Because after that,
Financially, I knew.
Ted, stop it. Yeah. Why do you... Genius.
I don't know, buddy.
Clean the plot.
Oh, you did book, right?
Nicest hotel in town. You know, actually, I think there's a good little hotel.
He doesn't speak English. Are you petrolero?
¿Quiénes? Tu nombre. Mi esposo quiere decirles que. Es que
Here's a wild stat. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, made 31.1 million in its opening weekend back in November 1992. Break that record for a hot second, literally 1 week after Bram Stoker's Dracula set it. And here's the kicker. This was a sequel to a movie that nobody expected to become the phenomenon it became. The first Home Alone wasn't supposed to be the third highest grossing film of 1990. It wasn't supposed to make Macaulay Culkin the most famous kid on planet Earth. It definitely wasn't supposed to launch a franchise. But it did all of those things, which meant Chris Columbus and John Hughes faced something way scarier than Joe Pesci's hair on fire. They had to do it again. Sequels are tricky beasts. You got to give audiences what they loved the first time without just reheating leftovers. Go too different and fans feel betrayed. Stay too similar and critics smell lazy cash grab from a mile away. Home Alone 2 threads this needle by doing something deceptively simple. It takes the exact same premise. Kids separated from family during Christmas, encounters same burglars, defends location with elaborate traps, and transplants it to New York City. On paper, that sounds like the definition of playing it safe. In execution, the city itself becomes the variable that transforms everything. Because here's what Chris Columbus understood. The first film worked because of contrast. Suburban safety versus home invasion threat. Childhood innocence versus adult menace. Cozy domestic spaces versus the terror of being truly alone. Home Alone 2 maintains those contrasts but amplifies them through location. Kevin's not defending his familiar house anymore. He's navigating the most overwhelming city in America. He's not just dealing with two bumbling criminals. He's surrounded by 8 million strangers. The Plaza Hotel isn't his home. Central Park isn't his backyard. Every choice Kevin makes in this film carries higher stakes because he's not on his turf anymore. Bye. The production itself was ambitious as hell. Filming ran from December 9, 1991 to May 1, 1992, 44 days of shooting. That's nearly 5 months. For context, most comedies wrap in 60 to 90 days. But Columbus and his team were essentially making two films, one in Chicago and its suburbs, replicating the opening family chaos, and another in Manhattan during one of the busiest tourist seasons. They shot at O'Hare International Airport, Winnetka, Evanston, and then descended on New York City with a child star, Hollywood crew, and permission to film at some of the most iconic locations on earth. The Plaza Hotel alone is a logistical miracle. This isn't some random boutique hotel, it's a landmark at Fifth Avenue and Central Park South, the kind of place where royalty and presidents stay. At the time, Donald Trump owned it, and even pops up in that lobby scene where Kevin asks for directions. Getting permission to film there meant coordinating with a working luxury hotel that couldn't just shut down for weeks. Guests were still checking in. Staff were still operating. Columbus had to weave a film production through all of that while maintaining the plaza's pristine, elegant atmosphere. The lobby you see on screen? That's the real lobby. The exterior shots, exactly what you'd see if you walk past today. Then there's Central Park, 758 acres of public space in the heart of Manhattan. The Pigeon Lady scenes, the Gapstone Bridge moments, Wallman Rink, where Kevin ice skates. These aren't sets, they're real locations that required permits, crowd control, and weather cooperation. Filming in New York in winter means you're gambling with snow, rain, freezing temperatures, and shortened daylight hours. You've got pigeons that won't take direction, pedestrians who wander into frame, traffic noise bleeding into every outdoor take. Columbus shot 104 days because he needed every single one of them to capture this city authentically. The budget was 28 million. That might sound quaint now, but in 1992 dollars, it's roughly 60 million today. Still reasonable for a major studio comedy sequel, especially one shooting almost entirely on location rather than controlled sound stages. But here's where it gets interesting. The first Home Alone cost about 18 million and made 476 million worldwide. Fox and Hughes Entertainment knew they had lightning in a bottle. They could have gone cheap, cranked out a formulaic retread, and still made a fortune. Instead, they invested more money to make something bigger, not just bigger in scale, bigger in ambition. H.W. John Hughes wrote the script, just like the first film. Hughes had this gift for understanding suburban family dynamics and childhood perspective. He wrote Ferris Bueller's Day Off, The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Planes, Trains and Automobiles, basically the Rosetta Stone of 80s teen and family comedies. But Hughes was also savvy. He knew you couldn't just do Home Alone in New York without justifying why these specific characters would end up in this exact situation again. So the script front loads the family chaos. It makes the Wet Bandits' presence in New York organic. It gives Kevin a genuine reason to stay in Manhattan rather than immediately finding help. And crucially, it introduces the Pigeon Lady as an emotional anchor, someone who mirrors Kevin's loneliness, but from the other end of life's spectrum. Chris Columbus returned to direct, which was essential. He'd established the tone, the pacing, the visual glamour of this world. Swapping directors mid-franchise often creates whiplash. Columbus ensured continuity not just in story but in how the camera moves, how scenes are blocked, how violence is cartoonish rather than disturbing. He'd proven with the first film that he could balance slapstick brutality with genuine heart. The claps hurt. Watching Marv take a brick to the face or Harry's head catch fire is wince-inducing. But it never crosses into cruelty because Columbus frames it like a Roadrunner cartoon. Physics exists just enough to sell the gag, then bend just enough to keep it funny. Julio returned as cinematographer. This matters more than people realize. Macquarie shot the first film's warm, glowing suburban interiors, those Christmas lights, that cozy house aesthetic. Now he had to translate that visual warmth into New York City's colder, harder urban environment. How do you make Manhattan feel Christmassy? How do you light Rockefeller Center without it looking like a postcard? How do you shoot the Plaza Hotel's opulence without making Kevin seem small and lost in a bad way? Makat solved these problems by keeping the camera close to Kevin's perspective. The city looms, but Kevin navigates it with confidence. The plaza is grand, but Kevin treats it like an adventure. The lighting stays warm even in winter exteriors, suggesting that magic and possibility exist everywhere if you're willing to see them. Raja Gosnell returned as editor. Editing is where comedy lives or dies. Timing a pratfall, knowing when to cut away for maximum impact, building rhythm so the film breathes between action sequences. That's all editorial craft. Gosnell cut the first film to perfection, making those trap sequences feel like escalating symphonies of chaos. He brought that same precision to the sequel while adapting to New York's faster pace. The city montages move quicker, the dialogue scenes have snappier timing. The final trap sequence is even more intricate because Gosnell understood how to build tension through cross-cutting between Kevin's preparations and the bandits' approach. And then there's John Williams, the man who scored Star Wars, Jaws, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Superman came back to write music for a kid setting traps for burglars. Williams' original Home Alone score is iconic. That main theme is instant Christmas nostalgia for an entire generation. For the sequel, he expanded the orchestration, added New York-specific musical flavors, and composed new themes for the Pigeon Lady. Williams treats this material with the same seriousness he brings to Spielberg epics. He knows the music is what elevates slapstick into something emotionally resonant. When Kevin feels lonely, Williams scores it like genuine loss. When the traps spring, Williams scores it like a heist film. When the pigeon lady feeds her pigeons in Central Park, Williams gives her a theme that's haunting and beautiful, suggesting depth and tragedy without explaining it through dialogue. The cast reunited almost entirely. Macaulay Culkin was 11 during filming, still riding the wave of being the biggest child star since Shirley Temple. Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern came back as Harry and Marv, now calling themselves the Sticky Bandits after escaping prison. Catherine O'Hara returned as Kevin's mom, Kate. John Hurd as the dad. The siblings, the uncles, the whole chaotic McAllister clan showed up again. This continuity is crucial. These actors know their characters. They understand the rhythm. There is no adjustment period or chemistry building needed. They can jump right into the dysfunction and comedy because they've already lived in these roles. But the sequel also brought in fresh blood. Tim Curry as the Plaza Hotel concierge, Mr. Hector, a genius bit of casting. Curry's theatrical menace, that voice dripping with suspicion and disdain, makes him the perfect obstacle between Kevin and his scam. Brenda Fricker as the pigeon lady is the film's secret weapon. Fricker had just won an Oscar for My Left Foot 3 years earlier. She brings gravitas and genuine pathos to a character that could have been a throwaway eccentric. Instead, she becomes the emotional core of the film. The person who teaches Kevin that loneliness isn't solved by independence but by connection. The film opened on November 20, 1992 and immediately dominated. Critics were mixed. Sequels always face harsher scrutiny. But audiences didn't care. That 31.1 million opening weekend was massive. The film played through the holidays, became a family tradition, and ultimately grossed 173.6 million domestically and 105.4 million internationally for a worldwide total of 359 million. It made nearly 13 times its budget. Fox had a hit. But more than that, they had a cultural artifact. Home Alone 2 became inseparable from Christmas for millions of people. It plays on cable every December. It streams every holiday season. Kids who were Kevin's age in 1992 now watch it with their own children. The Plaza Hotel still gets tourists asking about the movie. Central Park's Gavstow Bridge is a pilgrimage site for fans. The brownstone at 51 West 95th Street, where the final traps happen, is a real building, and people still visit it. Here's why that longevity matters. Most sequels are forgotten. They make money, disappear, become trivia answers. Home Alone 2 endured because Columbus, Hughes, and their team understood that repetition isn't the same as rehashing. They gave audiences the structure they wanted, the comfort of familiarity, while surrounding it with new textures, new locations, new emotional beats. Kevin's still clever and resourceful, but now he's also compassionate. The wet bandits are still incompetent and violent, but now they're motivated by greed rather than just revenge. The traps are still brutal and hilarious, but now they're set in a brownstone instead of a house, changing the spatial dynamics entirely. And underneath all the slapstick and chaos, there's something surprisingly melancholy about this film. Kevin spends most of the movie alone in New York at Christmas. He checks into a luxury hotel using his dad's credit card. He orders room service. He watches old movies. He explores the city. On the surface, it's every kid's fantasy freedom, money, adventure. But Columbus keeps reminding us that Kevin's lonely. The pigeon lady is lonely. Even Harry and Marv, in their pathetic way, are lonely. The film asks, what's the point of adventure if you got nobody to share it with? What's the point of home if it's empty? That's the thesis. Home Alone 2 builds toward. Kevin doesn't just defeat the bad guys, he reconnects the pigeon lady with her life, and he realizes that his annoying family is actually the thing he needs most. It's a more complex, more mature take on the first film's themes, which makes sense. Kevin's a year older, the audience is a year older. Columbus and Hughes trusted that growth. So before we dive into the story, the craft, the performances, the legacy, understand this. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, is a sequel that respects its predecessor while carving its own identity. It's a comedy that takes its emotional beats seriously. It's a New York film that doesn't condescend to the city or use it as mere backdrop. It's a Christmas movie that understands loneliness is as much a part of the holidays as joy, and it's a technical achievement that coordinated practical stunts, elaborate sets, location shooting, and child labor laws into a coherent, entertaining, enduring piece of cinema. 44 days of shooting, 28 million budget, 359 million worldwide, and 359 million worldwide, and 3-4 years later, it's still playing every Christmas. Let's see how they pulled it off. The film opens with a school Christmas pageant, and immediately you know you're back in the McAllister chaos. Kevin standing on risers with dozens of other kids singing "Oh Holy Night" while his family sits in the audience looking vaguely embarrassed. But watch what Columbus does here. He's not just re-establishing characters. He's showing you that nothing has changed. Kevin's still the youngest, still overlooked, still treated like an afterthought by his massive extended family. The pageant is supposed to be Kevin's moment, but even here, surrounded by community and holiday spirit, he's just one face in a crowd. Go. Cut to the house, and it's the same beautiful suburban fortress from the first film. Winnetka, Illinois, all snow-covered lawns and warm interior lighting. Columbus and Macat recreate that cozy visual language immediately, reminding audiences why the first film felt so safe before Kevin was left alone. But this time, there is no build-up to isolation. The family is leaving for Florida, Miami specifically, for a Christmas vacation at a resort. Already the premise diverges from the original. They're not going to Paris anymore. They're staying domestic, which makes the story's logistics slightly more plausible. Kevin's going to get lost in the same country, not across the Atlantic. The night before the trip, Kevin's testing a new gadget, a Top Boy tape recorder that records and plays back messages. It's a seemingly throwaway detail, the kind of toy product placement that defined 90s family films. But Hughes plants it specifically because it becomes crucial later. Kevin will use this device to trick hotel staff, confuse the bandits, and create alibis. It's Chekhov's tape recorder. If you show a recording device in Act 1, it better record something important by Act 3. The family chaos ramps up. Packing, arguing, siblings fighting, Uncle Frank being Uncle Frank. The usual McAllister disaster. Kevin finds a photo of the family in a frame and notices something. He's been cropped out, not literally, but he's on the edge, barely in the shot, like an afterthought. It's a small visual metaphor that Hughes trusts the audience to catch. Kevin feels peripheral to this family, not hated, just not central. And for a kid, especially during Christmas, that peripheral feeling is devastating. Bahia, the airport sequence is where Columbus starts tightening the screws. O'Hare International Airport at Christmas is bedlam. Columbus shot this at the actual airport, capturing real holiday travel madness. Crowds, luggage, stressed families rushing to gates. It's authentic chaos. The McAllisters are running late, naturally. They sprint through terminals. Kevin struggles to keep up. His batteries for the Talkboy die, so he stops at a kiosk to grab new ones. And in that brief moment, maybe 30 seconds, the family disappears into the crowd. This is the film's inciting incident, but notice how different it is from the first movie. In Home Alone, Kevin was left behind because of a power outage and headcount confusion. It was accidental negligence. Here, Kevin makes a choice. He sees someone who looks like his dad wearing the same coat and follows that stranger. By the time he realizes his mistake, he is at a different gate. Flight 226 to New York. He panics, boards what he thinks is the Florida flight, and doesn't realize until the plane is airborne that he is headed somewhere else entirely. Columbus shoots Kevin's realization beautifully. The plane takes off. Kevin looks around, notices the other passengers, glances out the window, and you see it dawn on him. Something's wrong. But he doesn't scream. He doesn't cause a scene. He's learned from last year. Last time, he wished his family would disappear, and they did sort of. This time, he processes internally. Culkin plays this moment with genuine confusion and growing dread, not exaggerated panic. It makes Kevin feel real rather than cartoonish. Meanwhile, the family arrives in Miami, checks into their resort, and goes through the exact same horrible realization they had in the first film. They've lost Kevin. Again, Kate McAllister, Catherine O'Hara, loses it, understandably. "We did it again!" she screams. "It's funny because it's absurd. What are the odds?" But O'Hara sells the genuine maternal terror underneath the comedy. She knows Kevin's out there alone. She just doesn't know where. The family tries to locate him, calls the Chicago house, checks with neighbors, alerts authorities. But Kevin's on a plane to New York, unreachable and untracked. Just Kevin lands at LaGuardia Airport. This is where the film pivots from suburban comfort to urban overwhelm. Columbus shoots New York the way a kid from suburban Illinois would experience it: massive, loud, fast, and full of strangers. Kevin walks through the terminal, steps outside, and is hit by the city. Taxis everywhere, People shouting, honking, steam rising from manholes. It's December in Manhattan, so there's cold, wind, that particular urban chill that cuts through jackets. But here's what's brilliant. Kevin doesn't cry. He doesn't look for help immediately. Instead, he does what any kid with survival instincts would do. He figures out what he needs. He needs shelter. He needs money. Well, his dad's credit card, which he still has. He needs a plan. So he hails a cab like he's seen in movies, tells the driver the best hotel in New York, and ends up at the Plaza. The Plaza Hotel reveal is iconic. That limestone and granite facade at Fifth Avenue and Central Park South, the flags out front, the doormen in uniforms. It screams old money luxury. Columbus frames it from Kevin's perspective, looking up, odd but determined. This is another key difference from the first film. In Home Alone, Kevin defended a space he knew. Here, he's entering a space completely foreign to him. He's improvising. And that improvisation becomes the spine of the entire first act in New York. Kevin walks into the lobby, and this lobby is stunning. The real Plaza lobby with its marble floors, ornate ceiling, gilded details, and hushed elegance. Columbus doesn't rush this moment. He lets Kevin and just take it in. The lobby becomes a character itself, representing adult sophistication that Kevin has to navigate with a child's cunning. He approaches the front desk, and here's where the top boy comes back. Kevin uses the recorder to play back his dad's voice, pretending his father is in the shower and sending Kevin to check in. It's a ridiculous plan. It absolutely should not work. But it does, because this is a comedy and the universe bends slightly for Kevin. The desk clerk is skeptical but processes the reservation under Kevin McAllister, Suite 411. Kevin gets a room key, heads upstairs, and discovers his temporary kingdom, a massive suite overlooking Central Park, complete with ornate furniture, a king bed, a sitting area, and every amenity a luxury hotel offers. Columbus shoots Kevin's exploration of the suite like a kid discovering Narnia. He jumps on the bed, he raids the mini fridge, he orders room service, a giant ice cream sundae, pizza, whatever he wants. The film leans into the fantasy here, the what if you had unlimited money and freedom scenario that every child dreams about. But Columbus balances that fantasy with subtle reminders that Kevin's alone. Room service arrives, and Kevin has to interact with adults, maintain his con, keep up the illusion that he belongs here. It's exhausting, and you can see Culkin playing that exhaustion underneath the excitement. While Kevin's settling into the Plaza, the film cuts back to Miami. Kate's coordinating with police and family friends in Chicago. She's desperate to find Kevin, but there's no trail yet. Kevin used a credit card at the Plaza, but that information takes time to process. This is 1992, no instant transaction alerts on smartphones. Kate's trapped in Florida while her son is somewhere unknown, and O'Hara plays this with escalating panic. She's not just worried, she's haunted by the fact that this happened twice. What kind of mother loses her child 2 Christmases in a row? Back in New York, Kevin ventures out into the city. This is where Columbus showcases Manhattan during Christmas, and it's gorgeous. Rockefeller Center with its massive tree and ice skating rink. Fifth Avenue with holiday window displays. Central Park covered in snow. Street vendors selling roasted chestnuts and pretzels. Columbus and Mackart shoot these locations with warmth and magic, making New York feel inviting rather than threatening. The city is massive, yes, but it's also full of wonder. Kevin walks through it like an explorer, and for a while, the film lets us share that exploration. He visits Duncan's Toy Chest, a fictional toy store, clearly inspired by F.A.O. Schwartz, which was located on Fifth Avenue at the time. Inside, it's a cathedral of toys. Multiple floors, a massive Christmas tree, elaborate displays, animatronics. The owner, Mr. Plonix, Duncan played by Eddie Bracken, is kind and generous, telling Kevin about the store's holiday tradition of donating proceeds to a children's hospital. He gives Kevin a pair of ceramic turtle doves, explaining that they're a symbol of friendship. One for you, one for someone you care about, Duncan says. It's a gentle moment in the middle of chaos, and it plants the seeds for Kevin's emotional arc. He's got this gift now, this symbol of connection. But who will he give it to? The toy store scene also introduces the film's central emotional question. What does it mean to be alone? Kevin's alone in New York. The pigeon lady, who Kevin hasn't met yet, is alone in Central Park. Even Harry and Marv are alone in their criminal partnership. Duncan's gesture suggests that loneliness is solved through connection, through giving something of yourself to another person. It's a Christmas movie thesis, sure, but Hughes and Columbus don't beat you over the head with it. They let it simmer. Kevin leaves the toy store and continues exploring. He stops by a street vendor, buys a map, acts like a tourist, and that's when he sees them, Harry and Marv, the wet bandits, or rather, as they're now calling themselves, the sticky bandits, because they're going to steal all the money that's stuck in New York during the holidays. They've escaped from prison, traveled to New York, and plan to rob Duncan's toy chest on Christmas Eve when the cash register will be overflowing with charity donations. Kevin overhears this plan while hiding behind a pillar. His face goes through a journey: shock, fear, anger, determination. These are the men who terrorized him last year. They tried to hurt him. They destroyed his house. And now they're here, planning to steal from a children's charity. For Kevin, this becomes personal. It's not just about survival anymore, it's about justice. He can't let them rob Duncan's toy chest. He won't. But Kevin's also smart enough to know he can't fight them directly. He's 11. They're adults. So he does what he did last year. He becomes a problem they can't ignore. He starts messing with them. Small stuff at first, throwing snowballs, making noise, drawing attention. Harry and Marv spot him, realize who he is, and suddenly their simple robbery plan becomes complicated. This kid cost them a year in prison. This kid humiliated them, and now he's here in New York, interfering again. The game is on. Harry and Marv chase Kevin through Central Park, but he knows the terrain now. He studied that map. He leads them through winding paths, over bridges, into crowds. Columbus shoots the chase with escalating energy. Quick cuts, handheld camera, John Williams score building tension. Kevin escapes by ducking into a cab, and the bandits are left standing in the park, furious and defeated. But now, Kevin has a new problem. He's revealed himself. Harry and Marv know he's in New York. They are actively hunting him. And unlike last year, Kevin doesn't have the home field advantage. He's not in his house with weeks to prepare traps. He's in a city, staying at a hotel under a false pretense with two criminals looking for him. That night, back at the Plaza, Kevin starts to feel the isolation. Room service brings dinner, but eating alone in a massive suite isn't as fun as it sounds. He watches a movie, Angels with Filthy Souls, the same fake noir film from the first movie. It's actually Angels with Even Filthier Souls now, a fictional sequel. He laughs at the exaggerated violence, the over-the-top dialogue. But when the movie ends and the room goes quiet, Kevin's just a kid far from home. Culkin plays this shift beautifully. The bravado drops. The loneliness sets in. The My Columbus ends this sequence with Kevin looking out his window at Central Park. The city glitters below. Christmas lights everywhere. Families walking together. And Kevin's up here alone, wondering what his family is doing, whether they miss him, whether they even care that he's gone. It's a melancholy beat in the middle of a comedy, but it's necessary. Without this moment, Kevin's just a wish fulfillment character. With it, he becomes human. Meanwhile, Kate finally gets the credit card alert. Kevin used the card at the Plaza Hotel in New York. She and Peter John Hurd immediately book flights, but getting to New York from Miami during Christmas travel season is a nightmare. Every flight is booked. They're stuck waiting, hoping Kevin stays safe, praying he doesn't do anything reckless. Which of course is exactly what Kevin's about to do. The next day, Kevin ventures out again, this time visiting Central Park more deliberately. He walks past Wallman Rink, watches ice skaters, eats street vendor food. And that's when he sees her, the pigeon lady. Brenda Fricker is draped in layers of old coats and scarves, sitting on a bench, surrounded by pigeons that land on her arms and shoulders. She's feeding them breadcrumbs, talking to them softly. Kevin watches from a distance, equal parts fascinated and wary. She looks homeless. She looks strange. But there's something gentle about her too. Later, Kevin enters Gapstow Bridge, one of Central Park's most beautiful stone bridges. And the pigeon lady is there. Kevin's scared at first, but she speaks kindly. "Don't be afraid," she says. They don't have a long conversation yet. That comes later. But this initial encounter plants something. Kevin sees loneliness reflected back at him. The pigeon lady is what happens when you're alone for too long. When the connections fray and disappear. When the city becomes your only companion. This encounter shakes Kevin. He returns to the plaza, tries to maintain his disguise. But the concierge, Mr. Hector, played with sneering suspicion by Tim Curry, is getting skeptical. "Your father still hasn't shown himself," Hector says, eyeing Kevin carefully. Kevin stammers through an excuse, but Hector's not buying it. He starts investigating, checking records, making calls. The clock is ticking on Kevin's Plaza paradise. That night, Kevin realizes he needs a new plan. The plaza isn't safe anymore. Harry and Marv are hunting him, and he is genuinely alone in a way that's no longer fun. So he makes a decision. He's going to stop Harry and Marv from robbing Duncan's toy chest. Not because he has to, but because it's the right thing to do. Because Mr. Duncan was kind to him. Because that charity money matters. Because Kevin's not just surviving anymore, he's choosing to act. It's the turn from reactive to proactive. In the first film, Kevin defended himself because he had no choice. Here, Kevin chooses to engage. That choice defines the rest of the film. And Columbus earns it by showing us Kevin's journey from excitement to loneliness to purpose. We understand why he does what he does next, because we've been with him every step. The stage is set. Kevin's in New York. The bandits are closing in. The plaza is becoming unsafe. And a pigeon lady sits in Central Park, feeding birds and waiting for someone to see her. Kevin wakes up the next morning in his plaza suite, knowing the fantasy is ending. Mr. Hector is suspicious. The credit card will eventually trigger alerts. His parents are probably looking for him. But instead of panicking, Kevin doubles down. He is going to make the most of his remaining time. He showers, gets dressed, puts on his dad's aftershave, burning his face in the process, a callback gag that Culkin sells with perfect timing, and heads downstairs to maintain appearances. The plaza breakfast scene is where Culkin really shines. He sits alone at a table in the hotel's elegant restaurant, orders elaborate dishes he can barely finish, and tries desperately to look like he belongs. But watch his body language. There's tension underneath the confidence. Every time a waiter approaches, Kevin straightens up. Every time someone looks his way, he smiles too widely. He's performing adulthood, and it's exhausting. Columbus frames these moments with just enough distance to show us Kevin's isolation in a room full of people. Breakfast at a luxury hotel should feel indulgent. Instead, it feels lonely. After breakfast, Kevin grabs his jacket and ventures back into Manhattan. Columbus structures these city exploration sequences like a love letter to New York during Christmas. Kevin visits the Empire State Building's observation deck, looks out over the sprawling cityscape, and for a moment allows himself to feel small. The camera pulls back, showing Kevin as a tiny figure against massive windows, surrounded by tourists and families. He's anonymous here, just another kid in a crowd. It's both liberating and isolating. He walks through the streets, stopping at a toy store window display. Columbus holds on this shot longer than necessary. Kevin staring at mechanical figures moving through a miniature Christmas village. It's beautiful, intricate, perfect, but it's also fake. A simulation of warmth and family that Kevin can observe but not enter. The reflection of the city behind him blurs in the window glass. For a few seconds, Kevin's caught between the real world and the fantasy, unsure which one he actually wants. Central Park becomes Kevin's refuge. He returns there repeatedly, drawn by its quiet contrast to the city's chaos. Columbus and Macart shoot the part with soft, diffused winter light that makes the snow look almost theatrical. Kevin walks past Bethesda Fountain, through tree-lined paths, over Gapstow Bridge again, and each time he sees the pigeon lady. She's always there, always surrounded by birds, always alone. Kevin starts leaving breadcrumbs on a bench for her pigeons, not speaking to her directly yet, but acknowledging her presence. It's a tentative connection, the kind an 11-year-old boy would make when he's curious but still scared. Meanwhile, Harry and Marv are planning their heist. The film cuts to them casing Duncan's toy chest, counting windows, timing security guards, plotting entry points. Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern have fallen back into their dysfunctional rhythm perfectly. Harry's the brains, relatively speaking, Marv's the muscle barely. Their bickering is constant, their schemes idiotic, but there's a weird chemistry that makes them watchable. Pesci plays Harry with simmering rage, always bubbling under the surface. Stern plays Marv with childlike stupidity that occasionally flashes into something darker. They're not harmless, they're just incompetent. They spot Kevin outside the toy store. Recognition hits immediately. Harry grabs Marv. "That's the kid," he hisses, "from Chicago." They follow Kevin at a distance, watching him walk through crowds, duck into shops, navigate the city with surprising ease. And you can see the calculation in Harry's eyes. This kid ruined them once. If they can grab him, hurt him, they'll have revenge and eliminate a witness to their toy store plan. Two problems solved. Kevin notices them following. Of course he does. He's paranoid now, always checking over his shoulder, always aware of exits. Columbus shoots this cat and mouse game through the city with escalating tension. Kevin speeds up. The bandits speed up. Kevin cuts through a department store. They follow. Kevin hops on a bus. They chase on foot. It's less slapstick than suspenseful. These are adults pursuing a child through a crowded city, and even in a comedy, that carries weight. Kevin loses them temporarily by ducking into Carnegie Hall. He slips through the ornate lobby, past ushers, into the concert hall itself, where a choir is rehearsing Christmas carols. The music fills the space. Sacred, beautiful, overwhelming. Kevin sits in an empty seat at the back, catches his breath, and listens. Columbus lets this moment breathe. No dialogue. Just Kevin, alone in this massive hall, surrounded by music about peace and family and home. John Williams' score weaves underneath the choir, and the two musical layers create something genuinely moving. It's a reminder that underneath all the traps and chases, this is still a story about a lost kid at Christmas. But the moment breaks. Kevin spots Harry and Marv entering through a side door, scanning the seats. He boards, running backstage, through corridors, past confused musicians. The chase becomes chaos. Harry and Marv knocking over music stands, Marv tripping over cables, Kevin squeezing through tight spaces they can't fit through. It's physical comedy again, but Columbus never loses sight of the danger. These men want to hurt Kevin. The laughter doesn't erase that threat. Kevin escapes through a back exit, emerging into an alley. He's out of breath, scared, and starting to realize he's in over his head. This isn't his house with traps he prepared. This is New York, and he's being hunted by people who know the stakes now. He walks quickly back toward the plaza, checking behind him every few steps. Back at the hotel, things deteriorate fast. Mr. Hector confronts Kevin in the lobby. "I've made calls," Hector says, his voice dripping with barely concealed triumph. "There's no reservation under your father's name beyond tonight. There's no one in your suite. And frankly, young man, I don't believe you're here with parental supervision at all." Tim Curry delivers this with perfect villain energy, not over the top, just officious and self-satisfied. He enjoys catching Kevin in the lie. Gaiman tries to maintain his scorn, playing back the talkboy recording of his dad's voice, but Hector's done with games. "I'm calling the police," he announces. Kevin's face shifts from defiance to genuine fear. Police mean authorities. Authorities mean being sent back to Chicago. And Kevin still hasn't stopped Harry and Marv from robbing Duncan's toy chest. He can't leave yet, so Kevin runs. Again. Through the plaza lobby, past shocked guests, out the revolving doors onto Fifth Avenue. Hector shouts after him, but Kevin disappears into the crowd. Columbus shoots this escape with handled urgency. Kevin pushing through pedestrians, weaving between cabs, running blind with nowhere specific to go. He's lost his room, his stuff, his temporary home. He's truly alone now. On the streets of Manhattan, with night falling and temperature dropping, Kevin finds himself back in Central Park. It's getting dark, and the path takes on a different character. Quieter, colder, emptier. Streetlights cast long shadows. His breath fogs in the air. He's wearing a jacket, but it's not enough for a New York winter night. He walks past Wallman Rink again, sees skaters circling under lights, and the contrast is stark. All those people having fun, warm, together, while he's alone in the cold. He reaches Gapstow Bridge, and the pigeon lady is there. She's feeding her birds by lamplight, softly singing to herself. Kevin approaches slowly. "Can I sit?" he asks. She nods. They sit in silence for a while, watching pigeons peck at breadcrumbs. And then, tentatively, they start talking. This conversation is the emotional center of the film. Brenda Fricker plays the pigeon lady with quiet dignity, never pitying herself, never asking for sympathy. She tells Kevin she used to have a life, a job, a love, dreams. But things fell apart. People left. She retreated, and eventually the city and the pigeons became her only companions. "When you're alone too long," she says, "you start to believe that's all you deserve." It's a devastating line, delivered without melodrama. Fricker just states it as fact. Becker Kevin listens, really listens, and then he shares his own story, not the version where he's on an adventure, but the truth. He's scared, he misses his family. He's been trying so hard to seem strong and independent, but he's exhausted. "I don't know if they even miss me," Kevin admits. The pigeon lady looks at him with something like recognition. "They miss you," she says softly. "Maybe they don't say it right, maybe they don't show it right, but they miss you." Columbus shoots this scene close and intimate, no sweeping cinematography. No music initially, just two lonely people talking on a bridge in Central Park. John Williams holds back his score until the very end of the conversation, and when it comes in, it's gentle and aching piano and strings suggesting connection forming, walls coming down, understanding reached. Kevin reaches into his pocket and pulls out the ceramic turtle doves Mr. Duncan gave him. He offers one to the pigeon lady, one for you, one for someone you care about. He repeats Duncan's words. She takes it, tears forming in her eyes. It's the first meaningful gift she's received in who knows how long. And for Kevin, it's the first time he's given something of value to someone else without expecting anything back. It's pure generosity, pure connection. They sit together a bit longer, watching pigeons roost for the night. The pigeon lady tells Kevin about Carnegie Hall, how she used to perform there as a young woman before everything fell apart. Kevin tells her about the bandits, the toy store, his plan to stop them. You're braver than you think, she says. But bravery isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing, even when you are. That line reframes Kevin's entire arc. He's been operating out of fear and survival instinct up until now. But what he's about to do, setting traps, confronting Harry and Marv, defending Duncan's toy chest, that's a choice. A brave one. The pigeon lady gives Kevin permission to be scared and heroic at the same time. They part ways as the park grows darker. The pigeon lady retreats to wherever she spends her nights. Kevin walks back toward the city streets, but now he has clarity. He knows what he needs to do. He needs to stop the robbery. Then he needs to find his family, not because he has to, but because he wants to. Because connection matters. Because home isn't just a place. It's the people you share it with. But first, he needs a location. The plaza is out, hotels are out. He can't exactly rent an apartment. So he does what any resourceful kid would do. He scouts a location that Harry and Mar will have to pass through. And he finds it. A townhouse under renovation on West 95th Street, not far from Central Park. It's empty. Scaffolding outside, construction tarps covering windows. Nobody's working there over the holidays. It's perfect. Nika Kevin breaks in through an unlocked window. Inside, the townhouse is gutted. Bare walls, exposed beams, dropped cloths everywhere, tools left lying around. It's cold, unfinished, slightly creepy. But it's also full of possibilities. Columbus shoots Kevin's exploration of the space like he's surveying a battlefield. He's not just looking for shelter, he's planning defenses. And with the construction site full of tools, paint, lumber, and industrial supplies, Kevin has everything he needs to build his trap gauntlet. He starts gathering materials, bricks from a pallet, paint cans from a shelf, a blowtorch, someone left behind, rope, nails, a metal pipe. Kevin works through the night, constructing elaborate traps on each floor. Columbus cross-cuts between Kevin's preparations and Harry and Marv planning their toy store heist, building parallel tension. Both sides are preparing for confrontation. Both sides think they have the advantage. Kevin rigs the front steps with tar, knowing it'll freeze overnight into a sticky trap. He balances bricks on the roofline, ready to drop. He sets up a paint can tripwire on the second floor. He preps the blowtorch near a door. Every trap is more elaborate than the last, and Columbus doesn't rush through this sequence. He trusts that watching Kevin work, seeing his ingenuity, his focus, his determination, is inherently engaging. By dawn, the townhouse is a fortress. Kevin surveys his work, exhausted but satisfied. He knows the bandits will come. He knows they'll try to hurt him. But this time, he's ready. Not just because he's clever, but because he's fighting for something beyond himself. He's protecting Duncan's charity. He's proving that kids aren't helpless. He's standing his ground. Columbus ends this section with Kevin standing at the townhouse window, looking out at the snow-covered street as the sun rises. His breath fogs the glass. His hands are dirty from construction work. He looks older somehow, like the city and the loneliness and the purpose have aged him slightly. Culkin plays this moment without dialogue, just determination settling over his features. The traps are set. The bandits are coming. And somewhere in New York, Kevin's family is desperately trying to find him before something terrible happens. Christmas Eve arrives cold and clear. Kevin spends the morning doing reconnaissance, tracking Harry and Marv from a safe distance, confirming their plan. They are still fixated on Duncan's toy chest, still counting the charity money in their heads, still convinced they'll pull off the heist of the century. Kevin overhears them finalizing details. They'll hit the store at 9 p.m. when foot traffic dies down, but before the registers close. That gives Kevin his timeline. He needs to lure them to the townhouse before 9, trap them, call the police, and save the charity money. Simple plan. Except nothing about this is simple. Kevin positions himself outside Duncan's toy chest around 7 p.m. He's bundled in his coat, standing near a pretzel cart, watching the store's entrance. Shoppers rush in and out, loading up on last-minute gifts. Mr. Wonderful Plan. Duncan is inside, smiling at customers, wrapping purchases himself with genuine care. Kevin feels the weight of what's at stake. If Harry and Marv rob this place, all that charity money disappears. The children's hospital gets nothing. Duncan's faith in humanity takes another hit. Harry and Marv appear from around a corner, dressed in long coats, trying to look inconspicuous and failing miserably. They're casing the store, counting guards, timing entrances. Kevin steps out from his hiding spot, directly into their line of sight. He makes eye contact with Harry, smiles, waves. It's a taunt, a provocation, a declaration. I'm here, I know your plan, and I'm going to stop you. Harry's face goes through rage, shock, and calculation in about 2 seconds. He elbows Marv. That's him! That's the kid! Marv's slower to process, but when he does, his expression darkens. We grab him now, Harry hisses. Kevin takes off running, not panicked, but controlled. He's leading them away from Duncan's toy chest, away from their target, toward the trap waiting on West 95th Street. Columbus shoots the chase through Manhattan streets with kinetic energy. Kevin sprints through holiday shoppers, dodges around a Salvation Army, Santa ringing a bell, weaves between parked cars. Harry and Marv pursue, less graceful, knocking into people, shouting apologies they don't mean. The city becomes an obstacle course. Kevin uses his size advantage, slipping through gaps adults can't fit through, ducking under barriers, cutting through a busy department store and out the other side. But the bandits are motivated by rage now, not just greed. They stay on his trail. Kevin leads them through Central Park, past Walmart Rink, over Bow Bridge, around the Great Lawn. The park is quieter on Christmas Eve, fewer tourists, mostly locals, walking dogs, or couples strolling through the snow. Kevin's footprints mark his path. Harry and Marv follow them like bloodhounds. Kevin emerges from the path onto Central Park West, then cuts over to West 95th Street. The townhouse is 3 blocks away. 2 blocks, 1 block. He can see the scaffolding, the construction tarps flapping in the wind. Almost there, Harry and Marv are maybe 30 yards behind him, closing the distance. Kevin reaches the townhouse steps, bounds up them. His feet know exactly where to land, avoiding the tar he spread earlier. Harry hits the tar first. His foot sticks. He tries to pull free, loses his balance, lands face first in the frozen sticky mess. Marv tries to help, steps in it himself, and both of them end up tangled in tar like flies on flypaper. Kevin stops at the door, turns and watches them struggle. Merry Christmas, ya filthy animals, he shouts, echoing the fake movie line that's become his catchphrase. Then he disappears inside. Harry and Marv eventually pull themselves free, leaving their shoes stuck in the tar, now barefoot on frozen concrete. They are furious, humiliated, in pain. Any pretense of this being about the toy store robbery has evaporated. This is personal. They want Kevin. They kick open the townhouse door and charge inside. The townhouse interior is dark, lit only by work lights Kevin rigged up. Harry and Marv enter cautiously, looking around. He's just a kid, Harry mutters, trying to reassure himself. What's he gonna do? Marv nods, but his eyes dart nervously. They both remember last year. They both remember the paint cans, the blowtorch, the tarantula, the BB guns. This kid is dangerous. They move through the ground floor, empty, tools scattered around, drop cloths hanging from doorways. Nothing obviously threatening. They find the stairs to the second floor. Harry goes first. Marv follows. And that's when the first trap springs. Kevin rigged bricks to fall from above when a tripwire is triggered. Harry steps on the wire. 4 bricks drop from the ceiling, hitting him square on the head in rapid succession. Thunk, 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 thunk. He staggers, sees stars, nearly blacks out. Marv catches him before he falls down the stairs. I'm gonna kill that kid. Harry slurs, eyes unfocused. Pesci plays this with cartoon rage. You can almost see little birds circling his head. They reach the second floor landing. Kevin's voice echoes through the empty space. Come and get me. It's coming from everywhere and nowhere. Kevin's using the top boy, placing speakers around the house, projecting his voice to confuse them. Harry and Marv split up. Mistake. Marvy enters a bedroom. It's stripped to the studs, insulation exposed. He looks around, sees nothing immediately dangerous. Then he spots Kevin's backpack in the corner. He approaches it, reaches down, grabs it, and a rope snaps tight around his ankle, hoisting him into the air. He is dangling upside down, arms flailing, shouting for Harry. Harry finds him, laughing despite his concussion. You look ridiculous. He tries to cut the rope with a pocket knife, but Kevin's thought of that too. The moment Harry touches the rope, a bucket of spackle dumps onto both of them from above, coating them in white goo. They're blinded, choking, spitting plaster. Columbus choreographs these traps with escalating creativity and brutality. The can launches upward, catching Harry in the face, sending him stumbling backward into a pile of bricks. Marv tries to grab Kevin, but Kevin ducks and Marv's momentum carries him forward. His foot catches on a tripwire. A toolbox swings down from a beam, connecting with Marv's head. He drops like a sack of wet cement. Kevin doesn't celebrate. He runs to the fire escape, climbs down 3 floors, drops into the alley, and sprints towards Central Park. Behind him, he hears Harry screaming in rage. They're not done. They're hurt, furious, and still coming. Kevin reaches Gapstone Bridge in Central Park, breathing hard, adrenaline crashing. The pigeon lady is there, like she always is. She sees his face and knows immediately something's wrong. They're still following me, Kevin gasps. She looks past him, sees Harry and Marv limping into the park, covered in tar and feathers and blood, murder in their eyes. Ma, Hide, she tells Kevin, pushing him behind her bench. She stands facing the approaching bandits. Her pigeons, dozens of them, roost on her shoulders, her arms, her head. Harry and Marv stop a few feet away. Where's the kid? Harry demands. The pigeon lady doesn't answer. Instead, she makes a sound, a soft cooing that Kevin's heard her use to call her birds. The pigeons respond. Not just hers, but every pigeon in Central Park. Hundreds of them. They descend on Harry and Marv in a shrieking, flapping mass. The bandits scream, flail, try to fight off the birds, but it's useless. They're overwhelmed, pecked, clawed, terrified. They run blindly, trying to escape the avian assault, and stumble directly into a police patrol that's been searching the park. The cops see 2 men covered in mysterious substances, attacking birds clearly disturbed. They move in. Harry and Marv, disoriented and exhausted, try to run but collapse. The police cuff them, call for backup. Kevin emerges from behind the bench, watching from a distance. The pigeon lady looks at him. You saved them, Kevin says quietly. You saved me, she replies. It's over. The bandits are caught. The charity money is safe. Kevin's no longer being hunted. But he's also still alone on Christmas Eve in Central Park. The pigeon lady sees this. What now? She asks. Kevin reaches into his pocket and realizes he still has his half of the turtle dove. He looks at it, then at her, then toward the city lights beyond the park. Now I go home, he says. But going home isn't as simple as deciding to do it. Kevin's still in Central Park on Christmas Eve with no money, no phone, no way to contact his family. The pigeon lady walks with him toward the park's edge, her birds dispersing into the night. Where will you go? She asks. Kevin looks toward Fifth Avenue, toward the Plaza Hotel glowing in the distance. I need to find my parents, he says. They were trying to get to New York. Maybe they are there. It's a thin hope, but it's all he has. The pigeon lady nods, understanding. Before they part, she pulls something from her coat, a small silver whistle, the kind she uses to call her pigeons. In case you need help, she says, pressing it into his palm. Kevin takes it, knowing he probably won't use it, but grateful for the gesture. They hug briefly, this odd pair who found each other in loneliness. Then Kevin walks toward the city lights, and the pigeon lady returns to her bridge and her birds. Kevin approaches the plaza cautiously. Mr. Hector is probably still looking for him. Security might be alerted, but as he nears the entrance, he sees police cars, lights flashing, and his heart sinks. They're here for him. He's about to be arrested for credit card fraud or trespassing or whatever they charge 11-year-olds with. But then he sees them, his mom and dad, standing in the plaza lobby, talking frantically to hotel staff and police officers. Kate's a red coat askew, hair disheveled, eyes red from crying. Peter looks equally destroyed. They've clearly just arrived, probably fought through every travel nightmare to get from Miami to New York on Christmas Eve. Kevin freezes on the sidewalk, watching through the glass doors. Part of him wants to run in immediately. Part of him is terrified of the reunion, of facing what he's put them through. Kate turns, scanning the lobby one more time, and through the glass she sees him. Their eyes meet. For a heartbeat, neither moves. Then Kate runs through the lobby, past the doorman, into the street. She drops to her knees on the sidewalk and pulls Kevin into her arms with the kind of desperate force that mothers reserve for children they thought they'd lost. She's sobbing, crushing him against her chest, repeating his name like a prayer. Peter joins them, wrapping both of them in his arms. They are a huddle on the Fifth Avenue sidewalk while Christmas Eve foot traffic flows around them. Macaulay Culkin plays this moment with total vulnerability. Kevin's tough kid facade shatters completely. He's crying too, clinging to his mom, all the fear and loneliness and exhaustion pouring out. Catherine O'Hara doesn't hold back either. This isn't a movie crying performance. This is raw parental terror releasing into relief. A Columbus holds the shot longer than most directors would. No quick cuts to break tension, no music swelling prematurely, just this family, reunited, unable to let go of each other. When John Williams' score finally comes in, it's gentle and restrained. Strings and piano, suggesting relief and gratitude rather than triumphant celebration. They eventually move inside, away from the cold. The lobby scene that follows is chaos, police officers asking questions, Mr. Hector demanding explanations, hotel management trying to assess damages and unpaid bills. But Kevin's parents shield him from most of it. Peter handles the credit card issues, explaining that yes, Kevin had his card. No, they didn't authorize the charges, but they'll pay for everything. Kate just holds Kevin's hand, refusing to let go, as if physical contact is the only proof he's really safe. A detective pulls Kevin aside, gently, aware that this is still a child. The two men we arrested in Central Park, the detective says. You know them? Kevin nods. They broke into our house in Chicago last Christmas, and they were planning to rob Duncan's toy chest tonight. The detective's eyebrows raise. The toy store? The charity money? Kevin nods again. I heard them talking about it. I tried to stop them. The detective looks at this skinny 11-year-old kid and seems to recalibrate his entire understanding of the situation. You stopped them? Kevin shrugs, suddenly shy now that adult authority is validating him. I couldn't let them steal from sick kids. The detective writes something in his notebook, then looks at Kevin with what might be respect. We'll need a full statement, but not tonight. It's Christmas Eve. Go be with your family. The McAllisters check into a room, a regular room this time, no suite, all of them together. The rest of the family is still in Florida, unable to get flights on Christmas Eve. So it's just Kevin, Kate, Peter, and the quiet relief of being found. They order room service, Kevin's choice. He's earned it. They sit together in the room, not talking much, just being present. Kate keeps touching Kevin's hair, his shoulder, his hand, reassuring herself. He's real. Eventually, Peter falls asleep in a chair, exhausted from travel and stress. Kate and Kevin sit on the bed, and she asks the question that's been gnawing at her. Were you scared? Kevin considers this. Yeah, he admits, but I don't know. I met people. I saw things. I helped someone. Kate listens as Kevin tells her about the pigeon lady, about Mr. Duncan's kindness, about the turtle doves and what they mean. She was so lonely, Mom. And I realized I'd rather be with you guys even when you're annoying than be alone. It's the thesis statement of the film, delivered not through action but through this quiet conversation between mother and son. Kate tears up again, but she's smiling too. You're right, she says. We are annoying. They laugh and the tension breaks. Kevin curls up next to her, and for the first time in days, he feels safe. Christmas morning arrives bright and cold. The McAllisters wake up together in their Plaza room. No presents under a tree, no elaborate breakfast, just coffee and bagels from room service. But it feels like Christmas anyway, because they're together. Peter suggests they walk through the city, see the decorations, maybe find a church service. Kate agrees. Kevin wants to make one stop first. They walk to Duncan's toy chest. It's closed on Christmas morning, but Mr. Duncan is inside, visible through the window, taking inventory. Kevin knocks. Duncan sees him, recognizes him immediately, and opens the door with a huge smile. Young man, I heard what you did. The police told me you stopped a robbery. Kevin blushes, uncomfortable with praise. I didn't want them to steal your charity money. Duncan's eyes get misty. He invites the McAllisters inside, shows them the collection box, still full, still safe. Because of your son, Duncan tells Kate and Peter, we can give over 50,000 to the children's hospital this year. Kate looks at Kevin with pride and astonishment. Peter puts a hand on Kevin's shoulder, speechless. Speechless. Gain gives Kevin something, a small toy, nothing expensive, just a gesture. Merry Christmas, he says. Kevin thanks him, then asks if they can make one more stop. They walk to Central Park together, Kevin leading his parents through the paths he's come to know. They reach Gapsto Bridge, and the pigeon lady is there, feeding her birds in the morning light. Kevin approaches carefully. Hi, he says. She turns, sees him with his parents, and smiles, a genuine warm smile that transforms her face. Kevin introduces his mom and dad. The pigeon lady shakes their hands formally, dignified despite her appearance. Your son is very brave, she tells them, and very kind. Kate, understanding somehow that this woman matters to Kevin, responds with equal sincerity. Thank you for taking care of him. The pigeon lady nods. Kevin reaches into his coat and pulls out a small wrapped package, something he must have bought at Duncan's store or asked his parents to help with. Merry Christmas, he says, handing it to her. She opens it carefully. Inside is a pair of gloves, simple, warm, practical, but also the other ceramic turtle dove, the one Kevin kept. So you're not alone, Kevin says quietly. The pigeon lady holds the gifts like they're made of glass. Thank you, she whispers. Her voice cracks. Kevin's given her more than gloves and a trinket. He's given her recognition, connection, the sense that she matters to someone. They talk for a while, the five of them, Kevin, his parents, the pigeon lady, and several hundred pigeons. Columbus shoots this scene with warmth, the winter morning light, soft and golden. The pigeon lady tells Kate and Peter about her life, not in detail but enough to sketch the outlines. Kate listens without judgment or pity, just human interest. Peter asks about the pigeons, genuinely curious. It's a moment of dignity restored, of a person seen rather than avoided. When they finally say goodbye, the pigeon lady pulls Kevin aside. You taught me something, she says. It's never too late to connect, never too late to come back. Kevin doesn't fully understand what she means, but he nods anyway. She hugs him, and he feels her trembling slightly, overwhelmed by emotion, by kindness, by the simple act of being included on Christmas morning. The McAllisters walk back through Central Park toward their hotel. The city is quiet on Christmas morning, peaceful in a way it rarely is. Kevin walks between his parents, holding both their hands, something he probably hasn't done in years. I'm sorry I got lost again, he says. Kate squeezes his hand. I'm sorry we keep losing you, she replies. Maybe we need to pay more attention. It's an acknowledgement, a promise to do better, not perfect. This family will never be perfect, but better, more aware, more intentional about making sure Kevin feels seen and valued. Peter adds, although if you're going to get lost, at least you stopped a major climb and helped a homeless woman. So, silver lining? Kevin laughs. It's a dad joke, awkward and inappropriate, but also perfectly Peter. The tension dissolves completely. They're okay, not because the trauma is erased, but because they're facing it together. Back at the plaza, they collect their things and prepare to head to the airport. The family in Florida has rebooked flights. Everyone's meeting back in Chicago for a belated Christmas dinner. As they walk through the lobby one last time, Kevin spots Mr. Hector behind the concierge desk. Their eyes meet. Hector looks like he wants to say something, maybe an apology, maybe a reprimand, but he just nods. Kevin nods back. No words needed. The cab ride to the airport, the flight back to Chicago. Columbus compresses all of this into a montage set to John Williams' score. We see the McAllisters traveling together, Kevin dozing on his mom's shoulder, Peter dealing with luggage, all the small mundane details of family travel that somehow feel significant after everything that's happened. They arrive home in Winnetka to find the extended family already there. Siblings, uncles, cousins, all gathered for Christmas dinner a day late. The house is chaos again, but warm chaos, familiar chaos. Kevin's siblings actually seem happy to see him. Even Buzz, the bully brother, gives Kevin a nod of respect when he hears the full story. Uncle Frank, true to form, makes an inappropriate joke about Kevin's credit card bill. Aunt Leslie scolds him. The kids argue over board games. Someone burns the rolls. The tree lights shot out and need to be fixed. It's everything Kevin found annoying before his trip to New York. But now it feels different. Or maybe he feels different. Maybe loneliness taught him that dysfunction is better than isolation. That night, after dinner and presents and all the traditional McAllister chaos, Kevin goes up to his room. He looks out his window at the snowy suburban street, so different from Manhattan's urban sprawl. He thinks about the pigeon lady feeding her birds in Central Park. He thinks about Mr. Duncan counting charity money. He thinks about Harry and Marv in jail, probably still picking feathers out of their hair. And he thinks about home, what it means, what it costs, what it's worth. Columbus ends the film with Kevin in bed, the house finally quiet, Christmas officially over. Kevin looks at his half of the turtle dove sitting on his nightstand. Somewhere in New York, the pigeon lady has the other half. They're connected now, across distance, across circumstance. Kevin smiles, closes his eyes, and drifts off to sleep. The camera pulls back slowly, out of Kevin's room, down the stairs, through the house where his family sleeps, out into the snowy night. John Williams' score swells one final time, that iconic theme that's become synonymous with childhood, Christmas, and coming home. And the film fades to black, having told its story about loneliness and connection, about bravery and vulnerability, about being lost and being found. That's the narrative arc. But what makes Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, more than just a competent sequel is how every element of craft supports these themes. The cinematography doesn't just capture New York, it captures Kevin's emotional journey through it. The editing doesn't just pace comedy, it builds character. The sound design doesn't just enhance gags, it creates atmosphere. The performances don't just hit marks, they reveal interior lives. So now we need to dissect how Columbus and his team actually built this thing. Scene by scene, choice by choice, frame by frame. Julio faced a challenge that would make most cinematographers sweat. How do you shoot New York City during Christmas without making it look like a postcard? How do you capture the most photographed, most filmed, most iconic urban landscape on earth and make it feel fresh? How do you light a luxury hotel interior without drowning in chandeliers and gilt? And most crucially, how do you maintain visual continuity with the first film, which was all about cozy suburban warmth, while operating in an environment that's cold, massive, and inherently impersonal? Makat's solution was deceptively simple. He kept the camera at Kevin's height. Watch the film again and notice how often the camera operates at a child's eye level, even in the most sweeping New York sequences. When Kevin looks up at the Plaza Hotel's facade, the camera tilts up with him, making the building loom. When he walks through Central Park, the camera stays low, making the trees tower and the bridges seem more substantial. When adults approach Kevin, they are often shot from below, emphasizing their size and authority. This isn't just a stylistic choice, it's an empathy engine. By maintaining Kevin's perspective, Makat ensures we experience New York the way Kevin does. Overwhelming but navigable, beautiful but intimidating, full of possibility but tinged with threat. The first film used this same technique in Kevin's house, making familiar domestic spaces feel larger and more maze-like during the trap sequences. Makat translates that approach to an entire city. The color palette shifts deliberately between locations. Suburban Chicago scenes, the opening chaos, the airport rush are bathed in warm golds and ambers, those cozy incandescent tones that define the first film. These scenes feel like home, literally and emotionally. The lighting is soft, coming from practical sources, Christmas tree lights, table lamps, overhead fixtures in the house. Everything glows. Then Kevin boards the plane and the palette begins cooling. The airplane interior is lit with fluorescent whites and blues, sterile and anonymous. When Kevin lands in New York, Makat pushes the color temperature even cooler. Manhattan exteriors are dominated by winter daylight, pale, slightly blue tinted, with hard shadows created by tall buildings. The city's natural light is less forgiving than suburban sunlight. It's cleaner but colder, creating contrast rather than comfort. But here's where Makat's craft shines. He doesn't let New York become visually hostile. He finds warmth in the cold. Christmas lights on storefronts add pops of red and green. The Plaza Hotel's interior glows with amber chandelier light, creating islands of warmth within the larger cool palette. Central Park at dusk gets painted with magic hour lighting, that golden period just before sunset when everything softens and glows. Even the townhouse, where the final traps occur, despite being a gutted construction site, gets lit with warm work lights that create pockets of visibility in the darkness. The Plaza Hotel sequences deserve special attention. This is a working luxury hotel with specific lighting already in place. You can't just tear down chandeliers and install grip equipment. Makat had to work with existing architectural lighting while ensuring his actors were properly exposed for film. The lobby scenes show this balancing act perfectly. The grand chandeliers provide ambient light, but Makat supplements with carefully hidden sources that keep Kevin's face without destroying the location's natural elegance. Watch the scene where Kevin checks in at the front desk. The concierge is lit from above and slightly behind by the lobby's existing fixtures, which puts him partially in shadow, visually reinforcing his suspicious, judgmental nature. Kevin, meanwhile, is lit from the front with softer fill light, keeping his face visible and readable. We need to see Culkin's micro expressions as he maintains his con, and Makat ensures we can. The suite scenes give Makat more control. These were likely shot on a constructed set that replicated Plaza suite design, allowing for traditional three-point lighting setups. But Makat doesn't abuse that control. He keeps the lighting motivated, appears to come from windows, lamps, practical sources, even when it's actually coming from film lights outside the frame. The result is spaces that feel luxurious but not artificial, lit for beauty but also for emotional truth. When Kevin feels excited exploring the suite, Makat fills the room with bright, even light. When Kevin feels lonely eating room service alone, the lighting becomes more dramatic. stronger shadows, pools of light separated by darkness, visually isolating Kevin within the large space. Same location, different emotional content, achieved through lighting choices. Central Park required entirely different strategies. McCart was shooting in a public space with natural light, weather he couldn't control, and clouds he had to work around. The ice skating scenes at Warman Rink were shot during actual operating hours, meaning McCart had to light for film while not interfering with real skaters. He relied heavily on large HMI lights positioned outside the ring, bounced and diffused to simulate overcast daylight, supplemented by the ring's existing floodlights. Gapstow Bridge, where Kevin and the pigeon lady have their crucial conversations, presented different challenges. It's a stone bridge in the middle of the park, with trees on all sides and water below. Natural light is dappled and inconsistent. McCart shot these scenes during specific times of day when the sun's angle provided soft, directional light through the trees. But he also had to account for continuity. If a conversation spans multiple days of shooting, the light needs to match across takes filmed weeks apart. B. The solution involved meticulous notes on sun position, cloud cover, and time of day combined with large diffusion frames to soften and control available light. When natural light wasn't cooperating, McCart used big soft sources positioned to replicate the sun's direction, creating artificial daylight that matches the natural stuff well enough that cuts between them are invisible. The trap sequences in the townhouse returned to more controlled environments. This was likely a constructed set on a sound stage, though it's dressed to look like a real construction site. Here, McCart embraces theatrical lighting, strong key lights, creating dramatic shadows, practicals, work lights, bare bulbs, providing motivated sources, darkness used as a compositional element rather than something to eliminate. When Kevin rigs traps, the lighting is workmanlike, bright enough to see what he's doing but not glamorous. When Harry and Marv enter, the lighting becomes more sinister, lower key, shadows lengthening, creating a haunted house atmosphere. When traps spring, McCart often backlights the action, silhouetting the physical comedy for maximum impact. A paint can swinging toward camera becomes more effective when it's backlit, creating a clear shape against darkness. The rooftop confrontation gets lit with a mix of practical sources, New York City lights in the background, moonlight from above, and carefully placed film lights. McCart needed enough light to shoot action at night, but not so much that it destroyed the nighttime atmosphere. The compromise is visible in the final sequence. You can see the actors clearly, but the scene still feels nocturnal. City lights twinkle in the background, establishing location and scale. The snow on the rooftop reflects available light, helping with exposure. Camera movement throughout the film follows classical patterns. McCart and Columbus favor steady, motivated camera work over flashy technique. The camera moves to follow action, to reveal information, to build tension, never just to show off. When Kevin runs through Central Park chased by the bandits, the camera follows with smooth tracking shots, keeping Kevin in frame while the background blurs past. When Kevin explores the Plaza suite, the camera pans and tilts to discover the space alongside him. There are moments of handheld work, particularly in chaotic sequences. The airport rush, the final chase through Manhattan streets. The handheld camera creates urgency and immediacy, making us feel like we are running alongside Kevin rather than observing from safety. But Columbus and McCart use this sparingly. Most of the film stays on sticks or dollies, maintaining compositional control. Framing choices reinforce character and theme. Kevin is often framed in doorways, windows, or archways, literally and metaphorically in transition between spaces, between childhood and maturity, between home and adventure. The pigeon lady is frequently framed against open sky or park landscapes, suggesting her connection to nature and freedom despite her circumstances. Harry and Marv are often framed in tight, cramped compositions, visually boxing them in even before the trap spring. The aspect ratio is 1.85:1, standard for American theatrical releases in the early 90s. It's wide enough to capture New York's horizontal sprawl, those long avenues stretching to vanishing points, the plaza lobby's expansive floor plan, but not so wide that it creates compositional challenges with vertical elements like buildings and trees. McCart uses depth of field expressively. In wide shots of New York, he keeps everything in focus, foreground, midground, background, creating a sense of visual density and overwhelming detail. In close-ups, particularly emotional moments, he opens up the aperture, throwing backgrounds into soft blur and isolating the character. When Kevin and the pigeon lady talk on Gapstow Bridge, Makat alternates between wider shots that show them in context, the park, the city beyond, and closer shots with shallow focus that exclude everything except their faces and the connection forming between them. The trap sequences use focus pulls to guide attention. When Marv approaches a rigged backpack, the camera might start focused on his face, then pull focus to the rope trap in the background, alerting us to danger. Marv doesn't see. It's a visual storytelling technique borrowed from horror films, creating suspense through information control, showing the audience the threat before the character encounters it. New York itself becomes a character through Makat's lens, but not in the cliche way most films treat iconic cities. Columbus and Makat aren't interested in tourist board beauty shots. They're interested in how this specific kid experiences this specific place at this specific time. So yes, we see Rockefeller Center and Central Park and the Plaza Hotel, but we see them filtered through Kevin's needs and emotions. When Kevin first arrives and is overwhelmed, the city is shot in chaotic fragments, quick cuts of yellow cabs, steam vents, crowds, buildings, or rapid fire stimulation. When Kevin gains confidence and starts exploring, the pace slows and the camera lingers, allowing us to appreciate architectural details, window displays, the urban Christmas aesthetic. When Kevin feels lonely, the city is shot in wider, more isolated compositions. Small figure in a big flame, surrounded by space and strangers. The ice skating montage shows Makat's range. We get wide establishing shots of Wallman Rink with the Manhattan skyline behind it, iconic and beautiful. We get medium shots of Kevin skating among crowds, integrated into city life. And we get close-ups of Kevin's face as he glides. Pure joy, simple pleasure, a kid being a kid. The sequence moves through scales of composition, from epic to intimate, telling a complete emotional story through visuals alone. Central Park in winter is notoriously difficult to shoot. The snow is beautiful, but it plays havoc with exposure. All that white reflects light and can fool light meters into underexposing everything else. Makat compensates by slightly overexposing to preserve detail in the snow while ensuring faces don't go too dark. The result is scenes that feel bright and clean, winter wonderland stuff without losing shadow detail. The pigeon lady scenes required specific lighting to make Brenda Fricker look weathered and rough-lived without being grotesque. Makat lights her with soft diffuse sources that show texture and age in her face but don't harshly spotlight every wrinkle. She looks like someone who's lived outdoors for years, but she's still dignified, still beautiful in her way. The pigeons themselves create moving shadows and fluttering patterns of light, adding visual interest to scenes that are otherwise just two people talking on a bench. Night scenes in Central Park are particularly effective. Makat uses practical street lights as key sources, supplemented by hidden film lights to fill shadows. The park feels genuinely nocturnal, dangerous, quiet, mysterious. But we can still see action clearly. When Kevin runs through the park at night chased by the bandits, the lighting creates zones of visibility separated by darkness, suggesting both pursuit and potential hiding spots. The film's final images, Kevin back home in Winnetka, looking out his window at the snowy suburb, return to that warm golden palette from the opening. But there's a subtle difference. The lighting feels slightly softer, slightly more magical, as if Kevin's seeing his familiar world with new appreciation. It's a tiny shift, probably not consciously noticeable to most viewers, but it's there. Makat and Columbus understand that coming home after adventure doesn't mean everything returns to exactly how it was. You're different. The world looks different. One technical detail worth noting, this film was shot on 35mm film stock, not digital. Film has a specific quality grain structure, color response, latitude in highlights and shadows. That was standard in 1992 but is now considered aesthetic choice. Makat selected film stocks that handled the wide contrast range of New York in winter, where bright snow and dark building shadows can exist in the same frame. The film's light grain gives it texture and warmth that digital acquisition wouldn't have provided. Makat's work on Home Alone 2 doesn't call attention to itself. That's the mark of great cinematography in classical narrative filmmaking. It serves story and character rather than showcasing technique. But when you study the choices, the craft becomes visible. Every frame is composed intentionally. Every lighting setup supports emotional content. Every camera move reveals rather than obscures. The result is a film that looks coherent across wildly different locations and tones. Suburban comfort, urban adventure, slapstick violence, tender connection. Makat created a visual language flexible enough to accommodate all of it while maintaining stylistic consistency. That's harder than it sounds. Sound design in comedy is invisible until it isn't. When a brick hits Harry in the head, you don't just see the impact, you hear it. That exaggerated thwack, the cartoon physics crunch, the reverberating bong that suggests cranial trauma without depicting actual injury. That sound is designed. Someone recorded it, processed it, mixed it, and placed it in the exact frame where it amplifies the comedy without tipping into sadism. Home Alone 2 is full of these choices. Hundreds of tiny audio decisions that shape how we experience everything from slapstick violence to emotional vulnerability. The film's sound design operates in two registers simultaneously: hyper-realistic detail and theatrical exaggeration. Real sounds, New York City traffic, airport announcements, Central Park bird calls, Plaza hotel lobby ambience create believable environments that ground the story in authentic space. Exaggerated sounds, trap impacts, screams pitched for maximum comic effect, footsteps that boom louder than physics allows signal that we're in a heightened reality where consequences exist but mortality doesn't. Listen to the airport sequence. The background noise is chaotic but carefully layered, overlapping PA announcements, luggage wheels rolling on tile floors, conversations in multiple languages, children crying, gate agents calling boarding groups. It's overwhelming, which is precisely the point. The sound design mirrors Kevin's experience. Too much information, too much stimulus, easy to get lost in. When Kevin realizes he's on the wrong flight, the background noise drops slightly in the mix, creating audio space for his internal panic. We hear his breathing more clearly. His heartbeat might even be subtly mixed in. The world hasn't actually gotten quieter, but the sound design shifts focus to Kevin's subjective experience. New York City presents different audio challenges. This is one of the loudest urban environments on earth: honking taxis, construction noise, subway rumble, millions of people generating constant sound. The sound design team had to record clean dialogue on location while capturing authentic city ambience, then later blend the two in post production. When Kevin walks through Manhattan streets, you hear the city around him: sirens in the distance, conversations in passing, street vendors shouting, steam hissing from manholes. These aren't random sounds thrown in arbitrarily, they're placed to create spatial awareness. A siren panning from left to right tells you a vehicle is moving past. Footsteps echoing differently in enclosed spaces versus open streets tell you about architecture. Central Park gets treated as sonic refuge from urban noise. When Kevin enters the park, the mix shifts. Traffic noise fades into distant background rumble. Natural sounds move forward. Wind in bare tree branches, pigeon coos, ice skaters' blades cutting across Wallman Rink. The pigeon lady's scenes rely heavily on these quieter elements. Her conversations with Kevin are intimate, recorded close to capture vocal texture and emotion. The pigeons create a constant flutter and coo that's both soothing and slightly unsettling. Hundreds of birds moving and calling create white noise that could be peaceful or overwhelming depending on perspective. The Plaza Hotel has its own sonic signature. Luxury hotels sound different from regular spaces. Thicker carpets absorb footsteps. High ceilings create specific reverb. Quiet HVAC systems hum at barely perceptible frequencies. The sound design replicates this. Kevin's suite feels acoustically dead compared to the lobby's open, reverberant space. When Kevin orders room service, the knock on his door has weight and depth, not the hollow rattle of a cheap hotel. These details are subliminal but effective. Then there's the trap sequences, where sound design becomes overtly theatrical. Every impact is heightened beyond realism. Bricks don't just hit, they chew D with bass-heavy finality. Paint cans don't just swing, they whoosh through air with exaggerated Doppler effect before connecting with skull-clacking impact. Bodies don't just fall, they crash with multiple layered sounds suggesting bone, muscle, floor, and cosmic injustice all at once. The sound designers are working in the tradition of Warner Brothers cartoons here. While Coyote physics applied to live action, The sounds can't be so realistic that they make us wince in genuine sympathy. That would kill the comedy, but they can't be so cartoony that they disconnect from the live action photography. The sweet spot is sounds that are recognizable as impacts but amplified for effect. Enough reality to sell the gag, enough exaggeration to keep it funny. Marv's scream is a character unto itself. Daniel Stern apparently recorded dozens of variations, and the film uses different screams for different situations. The paint can scream is different from the brick scream is different from the electrocution scream. Each is pitched and performed to maximize comic effect while conveying specific pain. It's vocal performance as sound design, and Stern commits completely. Footsteps get particular attention. When Harry and Marv stalk through the townhouse, their footsteps are heavy, ominous, each step clearly articulated in the mix. When Kevin moves, his footsteps are lighter, quicker, suggesting agility and youth. But they're all louder than real footsteps would be because the sound design is creating tension through audio clarity. We hear exactly where everyone is in space, which builds suspense as pursuer and pursued move through the house. The Top Boy recordings create interesting audio layering. We hear Kevin record his voice, then we hear the playback slightly degraded, slightly tinny, recognizably recorded. When the Top Boy is used to fool adults, the sound design doesn't cheat. We hear what the characters hear. A child's voice playing back his father's words. Obviously artificial, if you're paying attention, but plausible, if you're busy or distracted. It's audio sleight of hand that respects the audience's intelligence. John Williams returned as composer, and his score is both familiar and evolved. The main Home Alone theme, that soaring, optimistic melody that's now synonymous with childhood Christmas adventure, appears throughout, but Williams uses it judiciously. It's not wallpapering every scene. Instead, Williams composed new thematic material for New York, for the Pigeon Lady, for Kevin's loneliness, while calling back to the original theme at emotionally resonant moments. The Plaza Hotel gets its own musical motif, something elegant and slightly regal that suggests old world luxury. When Kevin first enters, Williams scores it with wonder and possibility, orchestration light and dancing. When Kevin eats alone in his suite feeling isolated, Williams reprises the Plaza theme but strips it down to solo piano, removing the orchestral warmth and leaving just the melodic skeleton. Same theme, different emotional context, achieved through orchestration choices. The Pigeon Lady theme is Williams at his most tender. It's built around solo woodwinds, oboe primarily, sometimes clarinet with gentle string support. The melody is melancholic but not depressing, suggesting loss and resilience simultaneously. When the Pigeon Lady talks about her past, Williams underscores it with this theme played softly, never overwhelming dialogue but adding emotional weight. When Kevin gives her the turtle dove, the theme swells slightly with strings joining, suggesting hope and connection. The trap sequences get scored like action set pieces because that's what they are. Williams writes energetic, driving music that builds momentum as Kevin prepares his defenses. When the traps spring, the score becomes almost symphonic, brass fanfares, punctuating impacts, strings creating tension, percussion emphasizing rhythm. Williams is treating this like he'd score a heist or a battle because compositionally, that's what's happening. Kevin's defending territory against invaders. The fact that the defenders is 11 and the weapons are paint cans doesn't change the musical architecture. Williams uses silence strategically too. Not every scene is scored. The conversations between Kevin and the Pigeon Lady often play without music initially, letting the dialogue and performance carry emotional weight. Music comes in afterward, once the connection is established, supporting rather than dictating feeling. This restraint makes the music more effective when it does appear. The Christmas carols scattered throughout the film are mostly diegetic, existing within the world of the story rather than imposed by the score. The school pageant at the beginning, the Carnegie Hall rehearsal, the street musicians in Central Park. These are all sourced music that characters hear. Williams doesn't over-arrange them or turn them into full orchestral set pieces. He lets them exist as texture, establishing time and place and season. But Williams also wrote original Christmas theme material that weaves through the score melodic ideas that evoke the holiday without directly quoting traditional carols. This gives the film Christmas feeling without relying entirely on jingle bells and silent night. The music feels seasonal but also specific to this story. The orchestration is full and lush. Williams conducting a complete symphony orchestra, not a small ensemble. This was still standard practice in 1992 for major studio releases, though it's become less common in contemporary filmmaking. The orchestra gives Williams texture and power, from delicate solo instruments in intimate moments to full orchestral swells in emotional peaks. When Kevin reunites with his parents on the Plaza sidewalk, Williams unleashes the full orchestra strings, brass, woodwinds, and percussion, all contributing to a musical expression of relief and love that would be impossible with a smaller ensemble. The score's production values are impeccable. Williams recorded with top session musicians, likely in Los Angeles at one of the major scoring stages. The recording quality captures orchestral detail. You can hear individual instrument sections clearly even in dense arrangements. The mix balances the orchestra properly, preventing brass from overwhelming strings, keeping woodwinds audible, ensuring percussion punctuates rather than dominates. Williams' score for Home Alone 2 does something difficult. It maintains thematic continuity with the first film while expanding the musical palette for new locations and emotional territory. Audiences get the comfort of recognizing the main theme, but they also get fresh material that makes this film musically distinct. It's sequel scoring done right, honoring what worked while pushing into new areas. Raja Gosnell's editorial work is where the film's pacing and rhythm come together. At 120 minutes, this is a long comedy, especially for an audience that includes children. Gosnell had to maintain momentum across 2 hours without exhausting viewers or letting energy sag. He does this through careful structural pacing, balancing action with quiet moments, comedy with emotion, Kevin's story with the parent search. By the film's first act is brisk. The family chaos, the airport sequence, Kevin's realization on the plane, his arrival in New York, all of this moves quickly, efficiently establishing situation and stakes. Gosnell cuts rapidly during the airport sequence, creating visual chaos that matches the narrative chaos. Shots rarely last more than a few seconds. We are jumping between family members, luggage, crowds, Kevin separating from the group. It's controlled chaos, fast cutting that's never confusing because Gosnell maintains spatial clarity and eyeline matches. Once Kevin arrives in New York, the pacing shifts. The editing slows, letting scenes breathe, allowing Kevin to explore. The Plaza Hotel check-in scene plays in relatively long takes compared to the airport. Gosnell trusts Culkin's performance and the comedy of the situation, not overcutting or fragmenting the scene. We watch Kevin maintain his con in real time, building tension through duration rather than rapid cutting. The city exploration montages show Gosnell's range. These could have been music video style rapid cuts of tourist locations, and many films would have gone that route. Instead, Gosnell varies the pace. Some shots linger, Kevin looking up at the Empire State Building, skating at Woolman Rink. Other shots move quicker, rapid cuts of window displays, street scenes, crowds. The rhythm within the montage creates texture, preventing visual monotony. The chase sequences use classic action editing techniques. When Harry and Marv pursue Kevin through the city, Gosnell cuts between pursuer and pursued, gradually accelerating the cutting rate to build tension. He uses the geography clearly. We understand where Kevin is relative to the bandits, which streets they're on, where they're headed. The editing creates urgency without creating confusion. The trap sequences are where Gosnell really demonstrates craft. These are essentially elaborate Ruby Goldberg machines. Each trap triggers the next in a chain of cause and effect. The editing has to show us every step clearly, while maintaining comedic momentum. Gosnell accomplishes this through precise timing and strategic cross-cutting. When a trap springs, Gosnell often cuts between 3 elements: the trigger, Kevin pulling a rope, stepping on a pressure plate; the mechanism, paint can swinging, bricks falling, and the impact, bandits getting hit. Each element gets just enough screen time to register before cutting to the next. The rhythm is almost musical: beat, 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 payoff. Then a pause before the next trap sequence begins. The brick dropping sequence shows this perfectly. We see Marva from below, climbing stairs. Cut to bricks balanced on a roofline above. Cut to tripwire on the stairs. Marva's foot approaches the wire. Cut tight on wire. Foot hits. Cut to bricks releasing. Cut to Marv's face looking up. Cut to brick 1 falling toward camera. Cut to impact. Repeat for bricks knee 2, knee 3, knee 3, knee 3, knee 4. Each impact gets its own cut, its own sound effect, its own reaction shot. The editing turns a simple gag. Bricks fall on head into an escalating symphony of pain. Gosnell also uses editing to control information. Sometimes we see traps before the bandits encounter them, creating suspense as we wait for the inevitable impact. Sometimes the traps surprise us along with the characters, creating shock and laughter from the unexpected. Varying this technique prevents the trap sequences from becoming predictable. The emotional scenes are cut differently. When Kevin talks with the pigeon lady on Gapstow Bridge, Gosnell uses longer takes and slower cutting. He lets Brenda Fricker and Macaulay Culkin perform without fragmenting their dialogue into short reverse, short ping pong. The camera stays on whoever speaking for complete thoughts, sometimes holding on a listener's reaction instead of cutting back to the speaker. This creates intimacy and allows performers to drive the scene rather than editorial gymnastics. The reunion with Kevin's parents at the Plaza is cut to maximize emotional impact. Gosnell starts wide, showing the entire lobby, Kate and Peter talking to police, Kevin appearing outside. Then he goes tighter. Kate's face seeing Kevin through the glass. Tighter still, Kevin's face recognizing his mom. Then he lets the scene play in a long take as Kate runs out and embraces him. No cutting during the hug, just a steady shot holding on this family reuniting, letting the moment land without editorial manipulation. Throughout the film, Gosnell demonstrates understanding that different scenes require different editorial approaches. Action gets cut faster, comedy gets cut for timing, emotion gets space to breathe. This flexibility keeps the film's rhythm varied and prevents viewer fatigue. The parallel editing between Kevin's story in New York and his parents' search in Miami and later New York creates structure and momentum. Gosnell intercuts between these storylines, showing us both sides of the separation. This builds tension. Will they find him? While also providing tonal variety. When Kevin's story gets too intense, we can cut to the parents for a different energy. Gosnell also handles the film's tonal shift smoothly. Home Alone 2 moves from slapstick to tender to suspenseful, sometimes within the same sequence. The editing helps these transitions feel organic rather than jarring. When Kevin goes from setting traps, action comedy, to visiting the pigeon lady, emotion character, Gosnell uses a dissolve or a quiet transition shot. Kevin walking through the park, city lights at dusk, that acts as a palette cleanser between tonal registers. One technical aspect worth noting, Gosnell was cutting on film in 1992, not digital. This meant physically cutting and splicing celluloid, working on Moviola or Steenbeck flatbed editing machines. Digital editing wouldn't become industry standard until later in the 90s. This meant Gosnell had to commit to cuts more definitively. You could still change things, but it required more labor than clicking undo in software. The fact that the film's pacing and rhythm work so well is testament to Gosnell's planning and precision. Sound and picture editing work together seamlessly. The impacts in trap sequences hit exactly on the frame, where visual and audio sync for maximum effect. Dialogue is cut cleanly without awkward pauses or overlapping words. Music cues start and end precisely where they need to emotionally. This synchronization seems obvious until you've tried to do it yourself. Getting everything to lock together requires meticulous attention to detail. The film's 180-minute runtime is well used. There's no dead space, no scenes that could be cut without losing something. But it also never feels overstuffed. Gosnell found the right balance between story, character, comedy, and action. Each element gets enough time to work without dominating the whole. The result is a film that moves, not rushed but purposeful, not slow but thoughtful. The editing serves the story rather than calling attention to itself, which is the highest compliment you can give a classical Hollywood editor. Gosnell built the film's spine, and everything else hangs on it perfectly. Macaulay Culkin was 11 years old during filming, and he carries this entire movie on his shoulders. That's not hyperbole, he's in almost every scene, and when he's not physically present, the story is about him. For a child actor to sustain that level of screen time while navigating comedy, action, emotion, and physical stunts is extraordinary. Culkin doesn't just hit marks and deliver lines. He creates a fully realized character who evolves across the runtime. Watch Culkin's face during the airplane realization scene. Kevin's looking around, noticing details. The wrong passengers, the wrong flight attendants, the wrong everything. Culkin plays this with subtle shifts in expression, confusion, then dawning awareness, then controlled panic. He doesn't overact it. A less skilled child actor would have gone big wide eyes, open mouth, exaggerated shock. Culkin keeps it internal, letting us see Kevin thinking and processing rather than just reacting. This restraint is Culkin's signature throughout the film. Even in the broadest comedy sequences, he stays grounded. when Kevin performs adulthood at the Plaza, checking in, ordering room service, navigating the concierge's suspicion. Culkin plays it as a kid pretending to be an adult rather than doing an adult impression. There's always tension visible underneath the confidence. His voice stays high and childlike even when he's trying to sound authoritative. His body language betrays his age even when he's trying to seem older. The physical comedy required real skill. Culkin had to sell the trap sequences, which meant reacting to effects that weren't always there during filming. When he pulls a rope that supposedly drops bricks on Harry, those bricks are added later or drop in a separate take for safety. Culkin has to time his pull and his reaction to match effects he's not witnessing. He does this flawlessly, making every cause and effect beat land precisely. The emotional scenes show Culkin's range. The conversation with the pigeon lady on Gapstone Bridge could have been saccharine or forced. Kid and homeless woman bonding feels like screenwriter manipulation on paper, but Culkin plays it with genuine curiosity and empathy. When he listens to a story, he's not performing sad kid face. He's actively listening, processing, connecting. When he offers her the turtle dove, there's vulnerability in the gesture. He's giving something precious to someone he barely knows, and Culkin lets us see Kevin taking that emotional risk. The reunion with his parents showcases Culkin's ability to access real emotion on camera. When Kate grabs him on the Plaza sidewalk, Culkin breaks. The tough kid facade shatters and he's just a scared, relieved child clinging to his mother. The tears look genuine. The body language is pure surrender. It's not movie crying. It's the kind of messy, overwhelming emotion that real kids experience. Culkin trusts that vulnerability enough to show it fully. Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern returned as Harry and Marv, and they've deepened these characters beyond the first film sketches. Pesci plays Harry with simmering menace, barely contained by incompetence. There's real threat underneath the comedy. You believe Harry would hurt Kevin given the chance. Pesci is famous for intense dramatic roles. Goodfellas came out just 2 years before this, and he brings that intensity to what could have been a throwaway villain part. When Harry glares at Kevin to a crowd, Pesci's eyes communicate genuine malice. But Pesci also commits to the physical comedy completely. He takes paint cans to the face, gets buried in spackle, falls off roofs, and he sells every impact with perfect timing. His reactions are big, but never too big. When bricks hit his head, Pesci's face goes through a progression: impact, confusion, pain, rage. It's a complete emotional journey compressed into 2 seconds. That's craft. Daniel Stern's Marv is the more childlike of the duo, which makes him simultaneously less threatening and more pathetic. Stern plays Marv as genuinely stupid rather than just incompetent. Marve believes his own schemes will work. Marve doesn't learn from mistakes. Marve touches the clearly electrified sink because curiosity outweighs self-preservation. Stern leans into this guilelessness, making Marv pitiable even as he's committing felonies. Stern's physical comedy is different from Pesci's. Where Pesci plays pain as fuel for rage, Stern plays pain as cosmic injustice. His screams are operatic, his falls theatrical, his suffering performed like tragedy. When Marv gets hit by a brick, he doesn't just react, he questions the universe. Why me? His body language asks. What did I do to deserve this? It's the Charlie Brown energy applied to home invasion. The chemistry between Pesci and Stern is crucial. They bicker like an old married couple, finishing each other's sentences and anticipating each other's mistakes. There's history in their interaction even though these are fictional characters. They feel like they've been partners in crime for years, which makes their dysfunction funnier. When they argue about the plan or blame each other for failures, it's not just dialogue, it's lived in relationship. Catherine O'Hara's Kate McAllister could have been a one-note worried mom character, but O'Hara gives her texture and specificity. In the first act, Kate is frazzled, overwhelmed by family chaos, stressed too thin to pay attention to every child. O'Hara plays this without making Kate unlikable. We understand she's drowning in logistics and noise. Losing Kevin isn't neglect. It's the inevitable result of impossible circumstances. Mind go when Kate realizes they've lost Kevin again, O'Hara's performance shifts into something rawer. Her "we did it again" is both funny and devastating, the absurdity of repeating this nightmare mixed with genuine maternal terror. O'Hara doesn't protect herself from looking desperate or out of control. She lets Kate fall apart, and that vulnerability makes the character real. The reunion scene is where O'Hara delivers her best work. When she sees Kevin through the plaza glass, her face does everything. Recognition, disbelief, relief, love, gratitude in the space of a heartbeat. Then she runs, and the running isn't graceful movie running. It's clumsy, frantic, all consuming need to reach her child. When she drops to her knees and grabs Kevin, O'Hara's crying isn't pretty. It's naughty and messy and utterly believable. She's a mother who found her lost child, and O'Hara commits to that reality completely. Brenda Fricker was a fascinating choice for the Pigeon Lady, an Oscar winner for My Left Foot taking a supporting role in a kids' comedy. But Fricker understood the assignment. She doesn't condescend to the material. She plays the Pigeon Lady as a fully developed character with interior life, not as homeless eccentric Dutu. 2. Fricker's performance is built on dignity. The Pigeon Lady could have been played as crazy or pitiable. Fricker makes her neither. She's someone who made choices, experienced loss, and retreated from a world that hurt her. But she's not broken. She's surviving, finding connection where she can with birds instead of people, maintaining her humanity despite circumstances. Fricker plays this through posture, upright, despite weathered clothes, and through voice soft but clear, never mumbling or playing homeless voice. The Gapstone Bridge conversation showcases Fricker's skill. She tells her backstory without self-pity or melodrama. She is stating facts about her life, not asking for sympathy. When she talks about loneliness, Fricker's voice remains steady, but you can hear the weight underneath. When Kevin gives her the turtle dove and she tears up, Fricker lets one tear fall and doesn't wipe it away. It's a small choice, but it communicates everything. Someone unaccustomed to kindness receiving it and not knowing how to respond. Tim Curry as Mr. Hector, the concierge, is deliciously villainous within the film's comic framework. Curry could have played this broadly, theatrical voice, exaggerated mannerisms, and it would have worked. Instead, he grounds it. Hector is officious, suspicious, and self-important, but he's also just doing his job. A child checking into a luxury hotel without visible adult supervision is legitimately suspicious. Curry plays Hector's skepticism as warranted, which makes him a better antagonist. Gully Curry's voice is his weapon. That clipped, precise diction, the way he emphasizes certain words, young man, becomes an accusation. The barely concealed satisfaction when he catches Kevin in a lie. It's all vocal performance. Curry doesn't rely on physical comedy. He stands still, speaks clearly, and lets his voice do the work. When he announces he is calling the police, Curry delivers it with quiet triumph, like a chess player announcing checkmate. Eddie Bracken's Mr. Duncan is brief but crucial. Bracken, a veteran character actor from Hollywood's golden age, brings warmth and genuine kindness to what could have been a throwaway role. When Duncan talks about the charity and gives Kevin the turtle doves, Bracken plays it with sincerity rather than tricky sentiment. He's not performing kindness, he's embodying it. The scene works because Bracken makes us believe. Duncan means every word. John, heard as Peter McAllister, gets less to do than O'Hara, but he brings exasperated dad energy that balances the family dynamic. Hurd plays Peter as a guy doing his best to manage chaos he didn't create. When things go wrong, Peter doesn't blame, he problem solves. Hurd makes Peter competent and caring without being saintly. He's a regular dad thrown into extraordinary circumstances. The supporting cast siblings, uncles, hotel staff, police officers are all professional and committed. Nobody phones it in. Even small roles get played with specificity. The desk clerk who checks Kevin in could have been generic, but the actor plays cautious professionalism mixed with skepticism. The toy store shoppers are dressed and blocked like real New Yorkers, not extras marking space. What makes all these performances work together is tonal consistency. Everyone's in the same movie. Pesci and Stern could have gone broader than everyone else, creating tonal whiplash between comedy and emotion. Instead, they calibrate their performances to match Culkin's grounded reality. Fricker could have played serious drama while everyone else does comedy. Instead, she finds the emotional truth within the comic framework. The result is a film where wildly different performance styles coexist without clashing. The child actors playing Kevin's siblings are naturalistic in their cruelty and indifference. Buzz, the bully brother, feels like every annoying older sibling who's ever lived. The other kids are self-involved and dismissive in ways that feel true to family dynamics. Nobody's performing movie family. They're performing actual dysfunction. Columbus deserves credit for guiding these performances. Child actors especially need strong direction to know when they're hitting the light notes versus pushing too hard. Columbus clearly created an environment where Culkin felt safe being vulnerable, where Pesci and Stern could commit to physical punishment, where O'Hara could fall apart emotionally. The performances feel loose and lived in rather than stiff or over rehearsed. The film also benefits from letting actors improvise within structure. You can feel moments that probably weren't scripted, small reactions, line readings that feel spontaneous, physical business that emerge from the actors rather than the page. This breathing room keeps performances fresh rather than rote. Ultimately, Home Alone 2 works because the actors treat it seriously, not solemnly. This is still a comedy, but with respect for character and story. Culkin gives Kevin real emotions. Pesci and Stern make Harry and Marb dangerous enough to matter. O'Hara makes Kate's fear palpable. Fricker makes the pigeon lady's loneliness hurt. They're all playing truth within a heightened framework, and that commitment elevates the material. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, is ostensibly about a kid who gets separated from his family and has to survive alone in a big city. But underneath that premise, the film explores something more complex, the tension between independence and connection, between self sufficiency and vulnerability, between the fantasy of freedom and the reality of loneliness. Kevin starts the film feeling overlooked by his family. He is the youngest, the afterthought, cropped out of the family photo literally and metaphorically. When he ends up alone in New York with unlimited credit and no supervision, it's every kid's fantasy made real. He can eat whatever he wants, stay in a luxury hotel, explore a massive city, answer to no one. For the film's first act in Manhattan, Kevin lives this fantasy fully. He is independent, capable, and thriving. But Columbus and Hughes don't let that fantasy stand unchallenged. They introduce the Pigeon Lady, a character who represents what happens when independence becomes isolation, when self sufficiency becomes loneliness, when you're alone for so long that connection feels impossible. She's Kevin's future if the fantasy continues indefinitely, and Kevin recognizes this. Their conversation on Gapstow Bridge is the film's thematic heart because it articulates what the story is actually about. We need each other, even when we are annoying, even when we disappoint, even when we are difficult. The turtle doves become the film's central symbol. One for you, one for someone you care about, Duncan explains. Friendship, connection, the acknowledgement that we are not meant to be alone. Kevin gives one to the pigeon lady, literally handing her a symbol of connection after years of isolation. It's a gesture that says, you matter, to someone who's been invisible for too long. And it transforms both of them. Kevin learns that helping others is more fulfilling than helping himself, and the pigeon lady remembers that connection is possible. BA. The family reconciliation at the end doesn't erase Kevin's legitimate grievances. His family is still chaotic and often neglectful, but the film suggests that imperfect connection is better than perfect isolation. Kevin chooses his annoying family over solo adventure because he's learned that meaning comes from relationships, not from independence. This theme resonates because it contradicts most children's media messages. Usually, kids' movies celebrate independence. The child hero who doesn't need adults, who's smarter and braver than everyone around them. Home Alone 2 complicates this. Yes, Kevin is clever and resourceful. Yes, he survives and even thrives alone. But the film doesn't valorize that independence as the ideal state. It frames Kevin's solo adventure as ultimately hollow without people to share it with. The Christmas setting amplifies these themes. Christmas is culturally about family and togetherness, which makes Kevin's isolation more poignant. He is alone in New York during the season that's supposed to be about connection. The city is decorated and festive, but Kevin experiences it solo. The film uses this irony deliberately. All the trappings of Christmas surround Kevin, but without family, they're just decorations. Columbus also explores urban versus suburban spaces thematically. The Chicago suburbs represent safety, familiarity, and family, for better and worse. New York represents possibility, independence, and reinvention. Kevin can be whoever he wants in Manhattan because nobody knows him. But that anonymity cuts both ways. Nobody cares about him either. The film doesn't condemn urban life or valorize suburban safety. It suggests each has value and costs. The wet bandits, now sticky bandits, represent adult predation on childhood innocence. They're grown men threatening a child, and while the film plays this for comedy, there's real menace underneath. Kevin defeats them not through adult power but through childlike creativity and ingenuity. The traps are essentially elaborate play taken to logical extremes. Kevin uses toys, household items, and imagination to defend himself against adult violence. It's a fantasy of childhood agency. The idea that kids aren't helpless, that creativity and intelligence can overcome physical disadvantage. But Columbus is careful not to make violence consequence free. Harry and Marv suffer genuinely. They are hurt, humiliated, and ultimately arrested. Kevin doesn't torture them sadistically. He is defending himself and protecting the charity. The violence serves purpose rather than existing for its own sake. This moral framework keeps the slapstick from becoming cruel. The film's cultural impact has been enormous and lasting. Released November 20, 1992, it grossed 359 million worldwide against a 28 million budget. It became the second highest grossing film of 1992 domestically, behind only Aladdin. It was a massive commercial success, proving the first film wasn't a fluke and establishing Home Alone as a franchise. More importantly, Home Alone 2 became a Christmas perennial. It airs on television every holiday season. It streams constantly in December. Multiple generations have now grown up watching it annually. For many people, it's as much a Christmas tradition as decorating trees or exchanging gifts. The film has transcended its original release to become part of holiday cultural fabric. The New York locations became tourist destinations because of this film. The Plaza Hotel still markets its Home Alone 2 connection. Gapstow Bridge in Central Park is a recognized filming location. Duncan's toy chest was fictional, but F.A.O. Schwartz, the inspiration, became even more popular partly due to this association. The film essentially created a Home Alone 2 tour of Manhattan that visitors still follow. Macaulay Culkin became even more famous, though this level of child stardom came with costs. He was the most recognizable kid in the world by 1992, and that fame complicated his life and career. But his performance in Home Alone 2 remains his most iconic work, the role he still identified with decades later. The film influenced subsequent family comedies. The idea of elaborate physical traps as comedy set pieces became common. The formula of kid versus adults, particularly kid versus criminals, spawned numerous imitators. The balance of slapstick and sentiment became a template studios tried to replicate. Critically, Home Alone 2 received mixed reviews. Some critics appreciated it as a worthy sequel that expanded the original scope, others dismissed it as formulaic repetition. Same plot, different city, diminishing returns. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars, calling it a charmless exercise in recycling, while acknowledging kids would probably enjoy it. The critical consensus was that it lacked the original's freshness while executing its formula competently, but audience response diverged from critical reception, as often happens with family films. Kids loved it, parents enjoyed it, box office receipts proved its popularity, and time has been kind to Home Alone 2. It's now regarded with nostalgia and affection by people who grew up watching it. The critical complaints about formulaic plotting matter less when the film succeeds as comfort food, as reliable holiday entertainment. The film's legacy includes launching a franchise that continued badly without Culkin in later installments. Home Alone 3, 4 and 5 exist, but they are largely forgotten. The first 2 films, both starring Culkin, both directed by Columbus, both written by Hughes, remain the definitive entries. They are the ones that matter culturally and artistically. John Hughes died in 2009, Chris Columbus continued directing family films with varying success, and the cast moved on to other projects. But Home Alone 2 endures as a time capsule of early 90s filmmaking, practical effects over CGI, location shooting over green screen, film over digital, physical comedy over computer-generated spectacle. Watching it now, 34 years later, certain elements feel dated. The talk boy seems quaint in an iPhone era. Credit card fraud would trigger instant alerts today. A lost child would have a cell phone. The whole premise requires a pre-digital world where communication isn't instant and surveillance isn't ubiquitous. But these anachronisms don't diminish the film. They give it period charm, reminding us of a moment when such stories were still plausible. What doesn't age is the craft. McCart's cinematography is still beautiful. Williams' score still soars. Gosner's editing still propels. The performances still work. The emotional beats still land. The film succeeds because it's well made, not because it relies on contemporary technology or references. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York is better than it had to be. It could have been a lazy cash grab sequel, minimally different from the first film, designed to extract money from audiences before fading into obscurity. Instead, Columbus, Hughes, and their team made a genuine effort to expand the concept, deepen the themes, and create something that stands on its own merits while honoring its predecessor. It's a film about loneliness disguised as a comedy about traps. It's a meditation on family disguised as a kid's adventure. It's a surprisingly thoughtful examination of urban isolation and human connection wrapped in slapstick violence and Christmas cheer. It works on multiple levels simultaneously, entertaining children with physical comedy while offering adults emotional resonance and genuine craft. The film argues that home isn't a location, it's people. Kevin's journey takes him from Chicago to New York to a construction site brownstone, but he only finds home when he reconnects with his family. The Plaza Hotel is luxurious but not home. The streets of Manhattan are exciting but not home. The townhouse full of traps is defensive but not home. Home is where people know you and care about you, even imperfectly. That message, delivered through paint cans and pigeon ladies and turtle doves and Christmas lights, resonates because it's true. We need each other. Independence is valuable but insufficient. Connection, however messy, is what gives life meaning. Home Alone 2 trusts that children can understand these themes. It doesn't condescend or oversimplify. It presents a complex emotional journey wrapped in accessible entertainment, giving audiences comedy and action while delivering something deeper underneath. 34 years of holiday viewings have proven the film's durability. It survives because it was made with care, crafted with skill, and performed with commitment. Columbus shot a real city with real locations and practical effects. Williams composed genuine orchestral music. Culkin delivered a real performance. O'Hara brought authentic emotion. The craft is visible in every frame, and ultimately, that's why Home Alone 2, Lost in New York endures. Not because it's perfect, it's not. Not because it's revolutionary, it's a sequel following a formula, but because it's good, solidly, reliably, skillfully good. It does what it sets out to do: entertain, move, and remind us that even when we are lost, even when we are alone, connection is always possible. Merry Christmas, ya filthy animals.